3 years of marriage, except when trying to conceive, Albert wouldn't even touch me. After the runaway fake heiress returned, I hid the pregnancy test and filed for divorce. Albert immediately agreed, afraid I might change my mind. He was the last to know about my plans to go abroad. He said, "Your parents-in-law have already forgiven you. You don't have to leave," I casually replied. "If I stay, my sister won't be happy. Do you want her to run away from home again?" "I'll come back to see you when I have time." Albert paused for a moment and fell silent. Soon after, he became engaged to the fake heiress. But later, on a stormy night, Albert appeared at my doorstep and asked, "You never planned to come back, did you?" Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. The day I went to Albert's company, I happened to see the new intern leaning close to him, chattering about something. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes brimming with admiration. The Chapman family's only son, fast-tracked through elite programs, with an impeccable resume, parachuted directly into company management. Not only that, Albert was exceptionally handsome. Standing at 188 centimeters tall, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, he exuded an air of cool elegance and noble refinement. Even after getting married, the swarm of women around him never diminished. Albert, who had always been cold and dismissive toward women. Albert unusually refrained from scolding her. I knew why, because she bore a 5 or 6 out of 10 resemblance to Caroline, especially those bright almond-shaped eyes of hers that blinked when she spoke. If it were before, I would have rushed over, linked arms with Albert, and declared my sovereignty. But now, for some reason, watching this scene, I didn't feel the slightest bit upset in my heart. Even more considerately, I went to the adjacent lounge. The secretary who led me here looked shocked. Her earlier embarrassment completely gone. I had barely sat down for 2 minutes when Albert arrived. His narrow eyes rested on me. "Why didn't you come straight in?" I hadn't even spoken when I saw that intern from earlier step out from behind him. She stuck out her tongue and said, "It's all my fault for messing things up, making Mr. Albert take time out of his busy schedule to teach me." I didn't say anything, just looked at Albert and said, "I made lunch and brought it for you, no need." "There's an impromptu business lunch today." The schadenfreude in the intern's eyes was unmistakably clear. I nodded, picked up the lunchbox, and left. Albert frowned slightly. "Let me walk you." Before he could finish, the intern cut in. "I'll escort Mrs. Pay out of Albert's sight." She gave me a provocative smile. "Don't you dare hate me. After all, Albert doesn't like you either. I just did what you did back then, Tilda." I was stunned for a moment. It took me a moment to understand what she meant. At the age of 18, I was taken back to the Clarence household. Mrs. Clarence said they had actually found me 2 years earlier, but they worried it might affect Caroline's and my college entrance exam performance, so they only brought me back now. It's mainly because I'm afraid of affecting Caroline. After all, the scar on my cheek from my foster father's broken bottle is still fresh, but even so, Caroline still couldn't accept it. She ran away from home with her passport and a bank card containing 10 million. She left a letter saying she had usurped another's place, and since I had returned, it meant Mr. Clarence Mrs. Clarence had ultimately chosen me. She shouldn't stay in this household anymore, so let her fend for herself from now on. This letter made Mr. Clarence Mrs. Clarence look at me with accusatory eyes. Yet ironically, the marriage alliance between the Clarence family and the Chapman family had already been finalized. It concerned the stock prices of both companies. I was filled with dread and unease, feeling that everything had happened because of me. It was at that very moment Albert stepped forward. He said he was willing to marry me. It had always been an arranged marriage, and I was the intended bride from the start. Back then, I thought I had found salvation, but I forgot in stories of switched identities. The fiancé always loves the imposter. I didn't know that beneath the engagement lay Albert and Caroline's childhood bond. My eagerly anticipated marriage was merely Albert's last resort to clean up Caroline's mess. It was also out of anger Caroline that she impulsively cast him aside. Fortunately, Albert was a decent man. Though he didn't like me, he never treated me poorly. He just didn't want to touch me. He often stayed at the company, and even when lying in the same bed with me, there was always an unbridgeable gap between us. Only when trying to conceive would he touch me skin to skin. When I couldn't bear it anymore, he would wipe away my tears, but never slowed his movements. I think he probably didn't treat Caroline this way, more tender, or more passionately moved. Though I stand in this marriage wearing a wedding dress, it feels utterly unrelated to me. 3 years have passed, watching helplessly as my once brimming joy turned to a basin of cold water. Everyone knew long before everyone except me. I stole Caroline's husband. Albert doesn't love me. All those times I appeared sweetly smiling, going everywhere with him, playing the boss's wife by treating everyone in the company to afternoon tea. Were they laughing at me in their hearts when they saw it? Looking back now, it was indeed both laughable and pitiful. The food in the thermal container had gone cold. When I ate it, it felt utterly tasteless. Albert came back while I was on the phone with the doctor. I hurriedly hung up the phone. As usual, he took a shower, changed into his home clothes, and then went to the study to work. With me, it was merely an exchange of glances. Yet we were clearly husband and wife. We were still entangled together just last night. Yet his attitude toward me seems even more distant and indifferent than toward that in turn. Naturally, he didn't even ask me what I was doing. Had he asked, I might have told him. Tell him I'm pregnant. 1 month ago, once, when Albert and I were trying to conceive, Albert was restrained and conservative, but the hardware was undeniable. I couldn't help shrinking back, accidentally knocking his phone off the bedside table. Albert paused what he was doing to pick up the phone. Coincidentally, the phone happened to chime at that moment, and I happened to catch a glimpse of his phone screen. It was Caroline who sent the message. Albert, I want to come home. Albert pulled away from me, put on his clothes, and went to the study, probably to call Caroline. For some reason, at that moment, I found the lingering scent of Albert on me quite unpleasant, very dirty. I went to the bathroom and scrubbed myself clean for 2 full hours. When I stepped out of the bathroom, as expected, Albert still hadn't returned. I was so exhausted that I fell asleep the moment my head hit the pillow. Forgetting to dry my hair, I came down with a fever. I drifted in and out of consciousness for 3 days. During those 3 days, I received Caroline's message. Albert insisted I go back, saying my place will always be there and no one can take it from me. Sis, do you think I should come back? Turns out, Albert went to pick her up. Actually, I'm a few months younger than Caroline, but at that time, Mr. Clarence and Mrs. Clarence said when they took me home, Caroline has been spoiled by us. Not as sensible as you'll be her elder sister, so take good care of her. And so our sisterly relationship was established. No one ever asked me if I was willing. I called Albert's secretary and asked where Albert had gone. The secretary said it was Mr. Albert's private itinerary, and he wasn't quite sure. I called Albert. No one answered. Albert didn't reply to me until 3 days later, asked me what was wrong, without a single word of explanation. During these 3 days, Caroline spent time with Albert while sending me many stories of their past together. She skipped classes and dragged the top student Albert to accompany her. Albert missed a competition just because she wanted to go skiing in Switzerland. Caroline was harassed and followed by some punk, and Albert lost his temper, getting into a fight. The ever aloof and indifferent Albert before me once had his wild youth of lovesick folly too. The marital harmony and mutual respect I imagined instantly lost all flavor when faced with these dazzling memories of youth. Like a mouthful of cold plain rice, utterly tasteless, yet I kept chewing alone, stubbornly grinding out a faint hint of sweetness. Caroline posted a photo on her social media at the airport. Albert has turned into a domineering CEO, and now I've ridden on a private jet too. Looking at Albert's message, I replied with 3 words, it's nothing, my fever has subsided. Along with the fever faded were the unrealistic fantasies and my fondness for Albert. Caroline has clearly returned. Albert still hasn't come clean with me. He's not reluctant to part with me, he just doesn't know how to say it. After all, these 3 years, I've done nothing to wrong him. Even Mother Pay, who initially couldn't bear the sight of me, has now started sending me gifts whenever she buys something nice. As usual, we were returning from dinner at the old Chapman family residence. I sat in the back seat of the car with Albert, an empty space between us. I thought I should make things clear with Albert. He deserved the right to know, a way to give myself closure for these 3 years, for this love affair that belonged to me alone. Albert, actually, I'm preg. Suddenly, the driver slammed on the brakes. Fortunately, we were still within the villa area, and the car wasn't moving too fast. I instinctively covered my stomach. Albert didn't notice, his gaze fixed outside the car. Outside, rain had begun to fall unnoticed. The raindrops settled on Caroline's hair. She's still as beautiful as she was back then. Beautiful, yet willful, she shouted at Albert. Why are you avoiding me, Albert? So what if you're married? Can't married people get divorced? If you don't come find me soon, I'll have to marry someone else. Albert pressed his lips together and remained silent. Caroline's voice trembled with unshed tears as she spoke. I'm not my parents' real child. The moment I returned, they wanted to use me for a political marriage. She is lying. As early as the first year of my marriage to Albert, Mr. Clarence Mrs. Clarence had already found her. She spent all her money abroad and contacted them, but she refused to come back, calling myself an unnecessary person. I happened to come across her Instagram. She was having the time of her life abroad. During holidays, Clarence's villa always stood empty. Mr. Clarence Mrs. Clarence would always fly abroad to find her. They seemed to have deliberately forgotten about me. Their daughter, How could such loving parents force her into an arranged marriage? Albert, could you bear to part with me? Caroline was asking him, yet her tone carried absolute confidence. She was certain Albert wouldn't bear to. I instinctively looked at Albert. His eyes were dark and inscrutable, his face expressionless. But I noticed the pronounced veins on the back of his hand resting on his thigh, his knuckles turning white, their gazes intertwined through the car window. I think I should be under the car, not inside it, but in the end, Albert just coldly told the driver, "Drive." Caroline chased a few steps, then fell to the ground. Back home, Albert exchanged a few more words with me. "Candace, both Caroline and I are things of the past. She's always been like this, acting impulsively without considering the consequences. Don't take it to heart. This sounds familiar. I think I've heard it several times from Mr. Clarence, Mrs. Clarence as well, so familiar that I don't want to hear it again. By the way, what were you trying to tell me earlier?" I smiled. "It's nothing. It's not important anymore. I've already made up my mind. I am the Matrix, possessing all rights, with no need to seek his opinion." Albert paused, seemingly wanting to say something more, but the moment was interrupted by a phone call. Caroline was hospitalized after a fall. Albert must have known she did it on purpose. He paid no attention and sent his secretary in his stead. Evening, Albert unexpectedly took the initiative to approach me. I glanced at him, his eyes darkened, and his Adam's apple bobbed. I subtly avoided his hand and said, "I'm going to take a shower." While showering, I rehearsed my lines several times. What to say when asking for a divorce? After 3 years together, we should at least give it a proper ending. In the end, I never found the right moment to say it, because when I came out of the shower, Albert was gone. He left me a message, "I'm going to the hospital." I sighed, not entirely unexpected. Perhaps Albert didn't need my sentimental farewell. Early the next morning, just as I was about to leave, Albert returned. His face was weary, his brows and eyes tinged with irritation, dark circles beneath them. Clearly, he hadn't slept all night. Rubbing his temples with an apologetic expression, he said, "Sorry, something urgent came up last night." Before he could finish, he noticed the divorce papers I had left on the table. His figure came to an abrupt halt. The room was utterly silent. After a moment, Albert parted his lips and said, "Have you made up your mind?" As he spoke these words, the tension in his brows eased slightly, like a weight lifted from my heart. It was finally gone. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw him pick up the divorce papers and sign them. He didn't even bother to check what I had asked for. Had I known, I would have asked for more. "You don't have to move out. This villa is yours too. I'll be the one to leave." He said it quickly, as if afraid I might change my mind. I didn't stand on ceremony, since it's been given to me. Even if I don't live there, I can always sell it. As for my decision to leave, there's no need to explain much to him. After all, we're no longer husband and wife. He doesn't need to know. After these words were spoken, the living room sank into silence once more. In the past, I didn't communicate much with Albert either, but the current silence seemed to make him somewhat uneasy. He pursed his lips. I knew this was his subconscious gesture when he was unhappy. He looked at me, his gaze slowly roaming across my face. Just then, his phone rang. It was a specially set ringtone. Who was calling went without saying. I could tell. Albert knew I could tell too, but he never avoided me because of it. This time was no different. He walked toward the study while answering the phone. The moment the study door closed behind me, I stepped out of the villa's main gate. I walked away from this place that had confined me for 3 years. 3 years ago, I entered with nothing but hopeful anticipation. 3 years later, I departed with a full harvest and tranquil composure. It's actually a very good arrangement. So, I don't hate Albert at all. In fact, I even wish him and Caroline a happy marriage. Albert just doesn't like me, that's all. But it has given me a good social status and a good life. There are plenty of marriages out there without love, without money, and without respect. I'm already very fortunate. There's no story without coincidence. I saw Albert accompanying Caroline for her checkup. Caroline's leg was wrapped in bandages, likely from when she fell while stopping the car that day. She asked excitedly, "Albert, did you really get divorced? Why didn't you tell me immediately? Candace, that old hag, didn't pester you, did she?" Albert practically told her the moment it happened. "After all, we only signed the divorce papers this morning. You lied to me before when you heard I was being stalked by a pervert. You flew to me overnight, stayed with me for 3 days, and still insisted we were just friends. I saw Candace calling you, and you didn't answer any of them. You're just being stubborn." Caroline jumped for joy but ended up pulling her wound. She insisted on having Albert carry her. Albert couldn't stand the noise anymore and smiled helplessly before finally squatting down. This was the last scene I saw before entering the operating room. When I left the hospital, Albert seemed to have just returned from shopping outside. He was holding a cup of milk tea in his hand. along with some snacks from near the hospital. The Albert in front of me was terrifyingly disciplined and never ate such things. Turns out, when someone is special, she can break all his rules. Albert paused for a moment when he saw me. How did you get here? His gaze instantly turned sharp. He seemed to think I would go looking for Caroline to cause trouble. I smiled. Just a minor surgery. Albert's gaze fell upon my pale lips, and he suddenly fell silent. What kind of surgery? Why didn't you tell me? I was just thinking of how to brush him off when I heard a woman's voice behind me. What took you so long? I'm starving. Caroline's complaints carried a coquettish tone. I lifted my foot and brushed past Albert. 1 month later, I received a call from Albert. He asked me, have you moved out? From the night we signed the divorce agreement, Albert moved out, apparently. When he went to the villa to pack his things, he discovered I had already moved out too, but I never expected he would go there personally. He took over the company at a young age, wishing each day had 48 hours. I see his secretary more often than I see him. It was during that time I accompanied Caroline that he disappeared for 3 days. After receiving my affirmative reply, Albert paused and said, that's just as well, perhaps it's for the best. I understood. These 3 years were but a dream. The place is deserted, no one remembers anymore, a clean break, to give newcomers a fresh start. I had barely hung up Albert's call when Pay's mother's call came through. She asked me, any good news lately? What nourishing foods have you been eating? She had just bought a pearl necklace and was having it delivered to me. Albert hadn't told her yet. Our divorce hasn't been publicly announced yet. We need to find the right timing. It mustn't affect the company's stock price. For old time's sake as husband and wife, I agreed to this request. But why even keep it from Pay's mother? Whatever, she is Albert's mother. Let Albert handle it himself. The day before departure, I attended a dinner party as usual. Before leaving, I received a message from Caroline. Candice, I have a gift for you. Is this to thank me for not continuing to pester Albert? I didn't think much of it, over these 3 years. I've made some friends in the circle. Since we probably won't see each other often from now on, it's time to say goodbye. When I arrived, several wives were discussing their husbands. Which one is keeping a mistress outside? Which one is flirting with the female secretary? Seeing me, someone said enviously, Candice, your husband is still the best. But I heard that Miss Green from the Green family has had a crush on your husband for years. The Greens traded a project for your husband's secretary position. You'd better watch out. Span. So Albert's face is worth that much. Huh, no wonder he kept that secretary by his side. But none of this concerns me anymore. By the way, why hasn't your husband come? I explained. He's already busy enough. How could he possibly find the time to come? I've lost count of how many times I've said this. After 3 years of marriage, Albert has never attended any event with me as husband and wife. Maybe he's genuinely too busy, but at this very moment, a lady suddenly looked behind me and exclaimed in surprise, isn't this your? She quickly stopped herself, casting a sympathetic glance my way. A premonition seemed to stir within me. I turned to look. A tall, elegant man and a petite, lovely woman. They walked arm in arm, like a loving couple. It was Albert and Caroline. There are so many reporters at the door. How could your husband not know to avoid suspicion? Bringing his secretary to the banquet is one thing, but with your sister too, I wanted to come up with a more dignified excuse, but it was proving rather difficult. Mr. Clarence Mrs. Clarence publicly claimed I was the posthumous child of a relative, which is why they adopted me. Few people know that Caroline is the mistakenly switched fake heiress, but almost everyone knows that Albert was supposed to be Caroline's husband, and that I drove Caroline away to seize the opportunity. Albert seemed startled by the reporters at the door. He hardly ever attends such occasions and didn't know reporters would be staking out the entrance. Even if he knew, he thought he wasn't a celebrity and wouldn't be the focus of reporters' attention. But he was wrong. His face alone was more popular than some D-list celebrities. A reporter asked him, Mr. Albert rarely makes public appearances, but this isn't Mrs. Chapman, is it? We all just saw Mrs. Chapman go in. Excuse me, Mr. Albert, did you cheat? I heard Albert's face darken as he coldly said, private matter, no comment, very much in line with his usual style. But the Caroline beside him suddenly had red-rimmed eyes. Are you Mr. Albert's lover? She forced a smile as the reporter's microphone nearly shoved into her mouth, looking particularly pitiful. I had a premonition in my heart, so it was, this is Caroline's real gift for me. Indeed, Albert grasped Caroline's hand in reverse and said, I'm already divorced. He chose to sacrifice my dignity and the company's stock price to save Caroline. I was met with a chorus of schadenfreude and eager anticipation for drama. Albert lifted his gaze, locking eyes with me. His expression changed, and he instinctively moved toward me, but he still had Caroline hanging on his arm. I turned and walked away without looking back. Later, I received a call from Albert, the familiar tone, the familiar voice. He said, "Today, I'm sorry, thank you, sorry, probably sorry for making me lose face. But what is there to thank me for? I don't know, thank me for letting him sleep with me for 3 years. No need for that, I didn't lose anything. Consider today's events as the price paid for the string of zeros in my bank account." I said, "You're welcome. But you're not welcome to patronize us again." I thought this would be my last conversation with Albert. As a result, the next day, in the airport waiting lounge, I received his call once again. Unlike the last time when his tone was so indifferent, this time, there was a rare impatience in his voice. "Where are you going?" I gave a fake location. Not that I'm narcissistic enough to think they'd come looking for me, but just in case, I lied. Clarence's family, and Albert. "I don't want to see any of them. Your in-laws have forgiven you. You don't have to leave." Is it because of what happened yesterday? Caroline wanted to attend with me. She didn't expect there would be reporters, and besides, we are indeed divorced. It's just that the timing of yesterday's announcement was somewhat unfortunate. I interrupted him, saying, "If I stay, Caroline will be upset. Do you really want her to run away from home again?" After I said this, the other end of the phone fell silent. Coincidentally, my flight began boarding. Before hanging up, I casually said, "I'll come back to see you all when I have time." I lied. Goodbye, goodbye forever, everyone from my past. This was my last phone call with Albert. A long time later, I happened to see some gossip online. It was said that Mr. Albert was photographed drunk, cursing someone as a liar. "You promised you'd come back." Albert was absent from the morning meeting. He's not in good shape. An indescribable restlessness gripped him. Yet he couldn't pinpoint the source of this unease. Suddenly, rain began falling outside. Albert never paid any attention to such weather. When it's cold, someone adds his clothes. When it rains, someone holds an umbrella for him. Everything is always arranged by others anyway. But today, he suddenly wished the rain would grow heavier, heavier still. Then the plane wouldn't be able to take off. He called his secretary in. He asked the secretary, Candace, did she leave any message for me before she left? The secretary was taken aback. He thought Albert must be out of his mind. Ex-wife Mrs. Chapman used to visit the company frequently during the first 2 years of marriage. She would even hesitate to disturb Albert, pretending to let him relay messages instead. Sometimes she'd ask Albert, "What would you like for dinner tonight?" Other times she'd remind Albert, "Don't forget to eat on time." He would wait Albert to finish his meeting or during a break in his affairs to relay the words of his predecessor, Mrs. Chapman. But Albert seemed to rarely respond, usually just saying "got it." Later, no one knew when it started. The predecessor, Mrs. Chapman, stopped coming to the company much and no longer asked him to pass on messages. Occasionally, she would come by to bring Albert a meal, but the secretary felt that even this wasn't quite the same as before. The former Mrs. Chapman who used to bring meals had eyes brimming with unconcealed anticipation and affection. The former Mrs. Chapman who later brought meals seemed to be fulfilling a duty, performing the role of a respectable couple. Whatever, the boss's affairs had nothing to do with a workhorse like him. In short, his predecessor Mrs. Chapman hadn't contacted him at all before leaving. He answered Albert's question with high emotional intelligence. "No." Albert's expression darkened. He knew he and Candace were already divorced, but she didn't have to leave this place right after the divorce. Even if they were no longer husband and wife, they were still family. Albert wanted to have his secretary inquire about Candace's exact whereabouts, but then thought better of it. It's best for them to keep their distance and not disturb each other for now. Albert returned to work after dismissing his secretary. He was very busy, so he quickly put Candace out of his mind. In the middle, Caroline called him to discuss the engagement. He took the time to answer. He didn't like being disturbed during work hours. Before Candace knew him well, she once called him, and he rejected the call. After that, Candace never called again. But Caroline wasn't as polished as Candace. She was still like a child, calling him whenever she felt like it. There were even a few times when he was still asleep, with Candace lying beside him. Everything seemed just as it was before, until the secretary knocked and entered once more. "Mr. Albert, your wife, Miss Candace seems to have sold the villa you used to live in together." Albert hadn't fully processed this when the secretary continued. "There were some things left behind that weren't taken, and the agent couldn't reach Miss Candace, so they called us instead." The secretary's expression was somewhat peculiar. Albert paused for a moment before asking, "What things?" It was a pregnancy test report. The rain grew heavier. It trickled down the floor-to-ceiling windows of the villa. Albert held the slip of paper, staring at the word pregnancy for a long time. Candace left many things behind. Their wedding photo still hung in the living room. On the table, there were only a few photos of them together. It made people mistakenly think she had just gone on a trip and would return soon. Albert pressed his lips together. a strange emotion flickering in his heart. This child came at the wrong time. But if Candace insists on keeping the baby, he wouldn't object. She has every right to keep this child. He might not be able to give her child the Chapman family's inheritance, but a trust fund would still ensure the child never wants for anything. Albert was certain Candace would keep the baby, otherwise, why wouldn't she have told him about it? Candace didn't tell him about the child, probably because she feared he wouldn't let her keep it. Beneath the prenatal checkup forms lay some other things. The yellowed, aged paper. It's a certificate of award, first prize in physics competition. Candace, flipping through, there are many more. Albert thought for a while before remembering. It was when the Clarence family brought Candace back home that Candace returned to the Clarence household with them. She brought back many certificates. As if trying to prove to Mr. and Mrs. Clarence just how outstanding she was, she attended a low-tier university, forced by her adoptive parents to stay close to home, attending college while working part-time to support the family and care for her younger brother. But Mr. and Mrs. Clarence didn't care how good Candace's grades were. They only cared whether Candace's presence would upset Caroline. That day, Albert was also present, because Caroline called him in tears, saying she was about to be kicked out by Candace, so he rushed to the scene immediately and stood by Caroline's side, willingly becoming her support. But now, looking back, it seems like everyone was standing by Caroline's side. Only Candace stood there all alone. She was thin and dark, with dry, yellowish hair, nervously wringing her hands. In her hands was a stack of certificates. But Mr. Clarence just glanced at them and said, "What a mess. Are they even clean? Throw them away." They didn't even look at them. They didn't understand the prestige of that physics competition. But Albert saw it, because he was originally going to participate in that physics competition too. Unfortunately, Caroline suddenly wanted to go skiing in Switzerland. He was already the heir of the Chapman family anyway. Missing this one competition wouldn't stop him from getting into a top-tier university. If he had gone back then, would he have met Candace much earlier? Candace later stored all these certificates in a drawer of this villa. Beneath the pile of certificates, there was also a book about management. This wasn't Candace's usual reading. It was given to Candace on their wedding night. At that time, he couldn't bring himself to be intimate with Candace. Back then, he was still young and still angry. Angry Caroline had walked away, forcing him to marry a woman he'd barely met. Perhaps overwhelmed by emotion, he spoke harsh words. He said, "Your education and perspective make you ill-suited for the duties of my wife. Please don't embarrass me. You should read more books." He casually handed her a book, then turned and went to his study to work. The book had curled corners and a slightly tattered cover, but it was protected by a clear plastic sleeve. Inside were many notes, numerous Candace's reflections and points of confusion. Albert stroked the pages of the book, his breath pausing slightly. Their child would probably be as intelligent and studious as she was. Albert gazed at the familiar furnishings in the villa, feeling an unexpected emptiness in his heart. This mood didn't last long. Caroline sent him a picture, a flirty selfie. Albert felt somewhat helpless. During the 3 days he spent with Caroline, Caroline tried every means to seduce him, but he refused each time. It wasn't that he disliked Caroline, but he had never been driven by desire, and at that time he was still married. Ever since he caught his father with his lover in bed as a child, he had disliked such matters. He didn't want to become a man like his father. Even if he were to do it, it would only be after marriage, so Caroline always liked to call him Albert. The days passed like this. Albert felt there wasn't much difference from before. The only difference was that Candace had disappeared. One night he woke up and reached for the person beside him, only to grasp empty air. The next day, Albert thought that as the child's father, he should find time to meet with Candace. He had his secretary book a flight to the city where Candace lived. The secretary inquired about Candace's exact address and arranged a private car to pick up Albert at the airport. Perhaps it's the joy of becoming a father for the first time. Albert didn't handle work on the plane for the first time. The child will have to stay with Candace in the future. Caroline, being childish, won't agree to let the Chapman family raise this child, but when it comes to child support, he won't shortchange Candace. He can fly to Candace's city once a week to visit the child. He won't be absent from their upbringing. He will definitely be a good father. Candace needn't worry that he won't love their child. He had thought it through perfectly, only to receive a message from his secretary the very next moment. "Mr. Albert, I couldn't reach Miss Candace. She must have blocked my number." Albert was stunned for a moment, then opened his chat interface with Candace. The most recent message was still from several months ago. Caroline was making a scene at the hospital, refusing to let them disinfect her wound. Mr. and Mrs. Clarence had no choice but to call him. Out of respect for his elders, he agreed to visit Caroline. When he left, Candace was taking a shower. He sent a message, "I'm going to the hospital." Candace replied with 2 words, "Okay," scrolling up further. It was when he was accompanying Caroline during that period and missed Candace's call. He asked her, "What's wrong?" Candace said, "It's nothing." Those few words of message, Albert read over and over again. Suddenly, he felt a pang of panic, sensing a premonition in his heart. He sent a message to Candace. "Where are you?" What responded was a red exclamation mark. "I applied for a master's degree in the physics department, a very good school, because I spent a fortune on my application and used Mrs. Chapman's identity. The price was being looked down upon by my classmates the moment I enrolled. A world-renowned school naturally attracts hidden dragons and crouching tigers, many exceptional talents. The wealthy are beyond counting. There are quite a few who are both intelligent and wealthy. Darcy is one of them." On the day I was scratching my head in frustration, completely unable to derive any experimental data, he adjusted the black-framed glasses on the bridge of his nose and said mercilessly, "Given your intelligence level, you've chosen the wrong major for gilding your resume." I smiled without rebutting and continued burying myself in experiments. After pulling several all-nighters, one evening, Darcy left a step too late. As he passed by me, he glanced at my computer screen. To his surprise, he discovered I'd actually done it. Suppressing a smug grin, I calmly turned to meet his gaze, but his next words wiped away most of my good mood. "Actually, there's a simpler way you could do this." Yet I had to admit, having always benefited from elite systematic education, he was indeed far more skilled than me in physics. After realizing this, I proactively sought him out several more times to ask questions. The first time, he was still a bit surprised. Later, he got used to my shamelessness. Even someone as smart as Darcy has his troubles. For example, the recent trend of hot nerd, he's exactly that type. There had been girls showing interest in him before, but now there were even more. I watched with schadenfreude as he kept a straight face, deliberately went 3 days without washing his hair, and wore a crumpled plaid shirt. I finished laughing and then threw myself back into my experiments. Student life is always both bitter and fulfilling. This year, I've rarely thought about Albert. In the beginning, in the spring sunlight, amidst the summer night cicada songs, within the autumn wind's swirling dance of colorful leaves, and when winter snowflakes land upon my shoulders, sometimes I think of Albert. Of the 3 years we walked together, I remember how he stood before me, facing the accusing Mr. Clarence, Mrs. Clarence, saying, "I can marry Candace." I remember waiting for him to finish work with joy in my heart, throwing myself into his arms, only to be pushed away as his face flushed red. I remember, in the darkness of night, the sound of his suppressed, restless panting. I remember the way he carried Caroline, but I don't know when it started. His face grew increasingly indistinct. Perhaps it was that day I finally completed the experiment, recording the results in my thesis, or perhaps it was another day. My method is more efficient than Darcy's, and he awkwardly admitted that he had been prejudiced against me and underestimated me at first. Of course, it could also be this day. The weather was fine, the sun was shining brightly. I realized with absolute clarity that my life shouldn't be trapped in a marriage that was wrong from the very beginning, that endless darkness of the past wasn't caused by me, nor should it confine my entire life. My departure was the absolutely right choice. Suddenly, Albert's face never appeared again. Between experiments, I scrolled through my phone. On the trending list was a name I once knew all too well. Engaged Albert was photographed drinking heavily late at night. In the video, he was slumped in the parking lot, being helped into a car by his secretary. He kept shouting liar with his mouth. "Liar, Candace, you're truly a liar," a previously friendly lady called and said. "Did you see the trending topic? You rushed into this divorce too hastily. Do you know that in the days after you left, Albert worked overtime so much he nearly ended up in the ICU. He got engaged to your sister but kept postponing the wedding." She wanted to say more, but I cut her off with the excuse of needing to attend class. She must be confused. Albert, what does his overtime have to do with me? As for his relationship with Caroline, it's even less of my business. Because of that trending topic, netizens quickly dug up my identity. I'm Albert's ex-wife. Some people say they're already divorced, yet this woman still clings to her ex. Has she no shame? I've seen plenty of these ex-wives, can't find anyone better, so they want to go back to their ex. A netizen retorted below, "Where did you see the ex-wife clinging to him?" This message was quickly deleted. It's obvious someone is controlling the comments. Soon, another insider leaked that I was actually the other woman who stole someone's partner. Albert wasn't originally my fiancé. It's all too clear whose handiwork this is. The situation had been brewing for most of the day. As I walked across campus, someone secretly took my photo. People were pointing and whispering about me. But soon, the trending topic was taken down. Albert, the company, also issued a statement saying they would take legal action against those spreading rumors. Albert didn't help clear my name. Then again, if he had clarified, Caroline might have been labeled as the ex trying to rekindle an affair. For the entire day, Darcy treated me with unusually good manners. He hesitated as if wanting to comfort me. Evening, when I left the lab, Darcy followed me. I glanced at him, and he quickly said, "Don't get the wrong idea, I just happened to be done too." On the way back, someone tried to take a sneaky photo of me, but he loudly stopped them. He was like an unrestrained puppy, yapping and yelping without restraint. I had intended to stop him. But when I saw his eyes gleaming at me after he finished yelling at someone, with that "no need to thank me, no need to praise me" expression, I changed my mind. The kid meant well. He walked me to the apartment entrance, insisting the whole way that he just wanted to take this route today. I didn't call him out on it. Before we parted, I said thank you to him. Darcy blushed instantly. "No need to thank me. I'd help anyone in such a situation." I nodded and said, "I know, you've always been kind." When others isolated me, thinking I only had money but no ability, he was the only one willing to help. The isolation of adulthood is less childish than in youth, yet nearly unbreakable, polite, distant, tacitly forming teams with others. Only Darcy, after speaking harsh words, was willing to pair up with me. Darcy walked away with clumsy, mismatched steps. I thought the farce was over, but I didn't know the photos taken today would bring me trouble again. I don't like rainy days. Because there were only 2 umbrellas in my childhood home, and I was never the one who got to use them. Later, I returned to Clarence's house. At that time, Caroline had not yet run away from home. Mr. Clarence and Mrs. Clarence wanted us to get along well, so she took me out with her, and Albert was also in the car. Halfway through the drive, despite the heavy rain outside, she made me get out of the car. Albert persuaded her a few more times, but ultimately yielded to Caroline's tears. I got out of the car and stood in the rain for an hour before the bus finally arrived. The day I left, the rain nearly grounded my flight too, delaying my school enrollment. After starting a new life, I bought 2 umbrellas. One stays at home, the other in the lab. I never got caught in the rain again. Tonight, a storm suddenly struck. I sent a message asking Darcy if they had arrived home safely after leaving. Before receiving a reply, there was suddenly a knock at the door. A year had passed. Albert appeared at my doorstep. He was still dressed formally, wearing a suit and tie, with his shirt buttoned all the way to the top. Yet now, raindrops trickled down his hair onto his pale, almost cold-looking skin, slid past his thin lips, and landed on his expensive suit. This was the first time I'd seen him like this. I was in my loungewear, reading a research paper. Albert's gaze shifted from me to the shoe rack by the door. Upon seeing no men's shoes there, he let out a sigh of relief. "Candace, the rain's too heavy, I can't get a cab. Lend me an umbrella." Darcy turned back and bumped right into Albert face to face. Both of them froze in shock. Seizing the moment, I pulled Darcy inside the room. I coquettishly said, "I told you not to leave earlier." Darcy quickly snapped out of it. With terrible acting, he said, I was planning to stay too." After speaking, he guiltily glanced at me, his ears turning red from lying. But Albert didn't seem to notice. His expression darkened instantly, his tone icy as he asked, "Your boyfriend?" I nodded. "Candace, he clearly looks like a student. The age gap between you is too big, and he doesn't even have a stable job. He's not suitable as a partner." I scoffed. "Albert, did you come here just to tell me this?" Albert frowned tightly. There seemed to be a trace of hurt in his eyes as he looked at me. "No, I came to see our child." As his words fell, both Darcy and I froze in place. I immediately realized he might have found out from somewhere that I had been pregnant, yet he didn't even know I had already terminated the pregnancy. There was no harm in telling him. "Albert, the baby is gone." Albert was stunned, looking at me with disbelief. "Really? I'm not lying to you. Do you remember when we met at the hospital that time? Caroline had scraped her leg, you were with her, and I happened to be there that day." Albert clearly remembered. That day, he had gone to buy food for Caroline and even indulged her antics at the hospital. When he ran into me, he thought I was there to cause trouble for Caroline. His face turned pale inch by inch until it drained of all color. I don't know Albert what he's thinking. He actually bought the apartment next door and moved in temporarily. I've run into him several times when going out. Darcy has pretended to be my boyfriend a few more times, but this method clearly isn't working. Albert didn't come because he couldn't let go of me, he came for the child. Moreover, he saw right through Darcy's disguise. But what I don't understand is why he still hasn't left, even after I told him the child was gone. When I asked him this, he froze for a long moment before saying, "The company has business here too." Such an obvious excuse. I turned and walked away immediately. "Candace," Albert called after me. I kept walking as I heard him say, Even if we're no longer husband and wife, can't we at least remain friends? Ridiculous. Not many days passed before Caroline showed up too. I heard her arguing with Albert. You think I don't know why you came here? You saw someone post her photo and immediately flew here after checking the location. You told your secretary not to reveal your whereabouts, all just to find that old woman, didn't you? Albert said. Caroline, Candace is your sister. To hell with sister. What right does that country bumpkin have to be my sister? Caroline seemed to have completely forgotten about our switched identities long ago. She yelled and screamed, drawing complaints from the neighbors. Caroline has been abroad for 3 years, but her English still doesn't seem to be very good when fighting back. She could only repeat the same few curse words over and over. Albert sighed and asked his bodyguard to deal with the neighbor situation. Caroline was punching and kicking Albert, but Albert showed no displeasure, only helplessness. I heard Albert say, I just wanted to figure some things out. Caroline clearly wasn't accepting this answer. She slapped Albert, then ran off with reddened eyes. Quite the soap opera moment. Darcy and I watched with great interest. Darcy asked me, what exactly is your ex-husband trying to figure out here? He doesn't even study physics. I glanced at his well-defined arm muscles. He's such a hot nerd, hot enough, and nerdy enough. Later, Albert came to see me a few more times. I ignored him every time. What you need to figure out has nothing to do with me. Please don't disrupt my life. The last time I saw Albert, it was another rainy night. He blocked me at the doorstep. You never planned to come back, did you? Why ask such an obvious question? Candace, why are you so heartless? I just went to the hospital, and now you want a divorce when I return. Albert's voice trembled as he spoke, even choking up slightly, like a wronged child. I looked at him in shock, shocked by his shamelessness. I retorted, what else? Wait for you to bring it up. Albert choked on his words. If I hadn't gone to the hospital that night, would we still be divorced? I told him bluntly, yes. Our marriage was a mistake from the very beginning. Albert retorted, it wasn't a mistake. If it wasn't a mistake, why did you repeatedly go behind my back to see Caroline? Albert flusteredly denied it, only that one time, and that one time, it was because Caroline said she was being followed. She was too scared, she wanted to go home, so, he went to pick her up, only that one time. We can try getting back together. There are plenty of couples who remarry after divorce. Besides, I've never done anything to betray you since we got married. Albert stubbornly stared at me, waiting for a positive response. I didn't want to say it outright, it would make me sound like some bitter, resentful woman. It seems he wouldn't admit it unless I spelled it out clearly. I said, that photo on my study desk, the one of you and Caroline, was taken during high school, wasn't it? That doll you've been carefully preserving, Caroline gave it to you, didn't she? You gave me the cold shoulder when I cut the roses in the yard because you and Caroline planted them together, didn't you? Albert opened his mouth, but no words came out. I knew it. After marriage, Albert might not have done anything to wrong me. Perhaps he never slept with Caroline. Yet he still regarded her as the most special person. Albert wanted to treat her as an ordinary friend, often having his secretary handle matters instead, but when Caroline truly lost her temper and became upset, Albert could never remain indifferent, just like those 3 days, just like when the reporters asked their questions. Caroline had always been the most special person to him. Uncontrollable favoritism has left me increasingly lonely in this marriage. Albert's eyes flickered with panic. He wanted to explain something, but ultimately realized any words would just sound like excuses. I walked into the apartment. Behind me, Albert said his last words to me. Why did you wait until I understood my own feelings before telling me all this? I closed the door. Albert moved away. It never appeared again. Darcy confessed to me that day. Albert and Caroline weren't married yet. Related hot searches appeared online again, directly accusing me of sabotaging Albert and Caroline's relationship. Just like last time, a bunch of trolls are smearing my reputation. But unlike last time, Albert publicly issued a statement. He said, the Chapman family's marriage arrangement was originally with the Clarence family, without specifying which young lady of the Clarence family, so there's no situation where I stole Caroline's husband. Then, he added that he had already cut off contact with me and hoped netizens wouldn't disturb me either. This time, he actually acted somewhat like a man. Yet Darcy still found this statement unsatisfactory. He sought out his hacker friend. As a result, the truth about the switched heiresses was exposed that very day. The greedy couple had swapped their child with the wealthy family's baby. The fake heiress pretended to run away from home, only to end up abusing drugs and sleeping around abroad. After squandering all her money, the fake heiress returned and forced the real heiress to divorce. What a steaming pile of drama, backed by evidence and vivid imagery, far more explosive than those vague, half-baked scandals from before. Caroline immediately had people delete the posts and suppress the trending topics, But Darcy's friends were one step ahead. As soon as one post was deleted, a new one popped up. The final result was, Caroline was left utterly disgraced. Darcy got her reward and was thoroughly satisfied. Many years later, on the day Darcy and I got married, Mr. Clarence and Mrs. Clarence showed up uninvited and were turned away at the door. Over the years, they tried to reach out to me, but I ignored them every time. Caroline never ran away from home again, but her spending habits grew increasingly extravagant, so formidable that, once out of money, they would make a huge scene, even going so far as to injure Mrs. Clarence. At this moment, they thought of me again, but I was no longer their daughter. They only acknowledged me after I turned 18. By then I was already an adult, no longer in need of guardians. They kept my social kinship records unchanged, both for convenience and to please Caroline, so legally speaking, they're just strangers to me. As for my adoptive parents, after the child-swapping scandal came to light, they never contacted me again, probably fearing I'd send them to prison. All that remains in my life are those I love, and those who love me. At the wedding, Darcy was crying as we kissed, and I thought I saw Albert pass by in a fleeting glimpse. The end. Story 2. Discovering Devin's infidelity. He didn't panic or deny it. We talked, divorced, all very calmly. On the way to get the divorce certificate, I couldn't help but ask him, "Why did you insist on fighting for our marital home?" "That thing," Devin said nonchalantly. "Deirdre got jealous and insisted on personally destroying all traces of me being with other women to vent her anger." He shook his head, his tone amused yet indulgent. "Childish fool." I froze for several seconds, staring at his profile glowing with delight at divorcing me. Swinging my bag, I smashed it into his face, sending blood flying from his nose. I suffer from emotional detachment. Devin, when he asked for a divorce, I handled it with my usual calm rationality. As the at-fault party, he readily agreed to cede most of our marital assets to me. The only thing he insisted on keeping was our marital home. That house was bought when we were 24, costing us all our savings at the time. I still remember the day we got the keys. Standing in that raw concrete-smelling shell of a home, we were radiant with excitement, dreaming and planning our future. That joy is something I could never forget. Even years later, 8 years passed, Devin's annual salary grew higher and higher, and each new house we moved into was bigger and more beautiful than the last. When we divorced, I counted 7 properties under my name. We hadn't lived there for a long time. That marital home, which once held infinite promise for us, now seemed poorly located, badly lit, and shabbily decorated. Compared to the other properties, it was truly not worth mentioning. If I had to say what it contains, it's probably just the memories of those years when Devin and I were most in love. So when Devin insisted on keeping that marital home, I naively thought that despite his changed heart, he at least still felt some guilt toward me and some lingering attachment to our 10-year relationship, only to find out it was just to entertain his little sweetheart. Not only was there no attachment, no guilt, even as a betrayer, if he had the slightest regard for me as a human being, the slightest respect for me, he wouldn't have uttered those words so nonchalantly. I took a deep breath and looked at Devin's profile. He looked pleased to be going to divorce me. A few seconds later, I check my seatbelt and scan the road ahead. I glance around the car's interior, hefting the weight of my bag in my hand. Devin, The next second, I swing my bag in a full arc, smashing it into Devin's face with enough force to send blood flying. "Holy shit, Chaya, you're insane." Devin was caught completely off guard by this sudden head-on blow, abandoning all pretense of composure as he swore uncharacteristically. I watched his reaction closely, ready to take over the steering wheel at any moment. After all, a man heading toward a new life still values his survival. Devin didn't even bother to wipe his nosebleed, frantically pulling the car over before glaring at me in fury. Devin pressed a tissue to his bleeding nose, brows furrowed tightly as he suppressed his anger, his voice dripping with disappointment. "Chaya, I always thought you were intelligent and level-headed, not some hysterical shrew. Can't we just have a dignified divorce?" I sneered. "Ha, dignified? You've been planning this divorce for a long time. Couldn't wait to start a new life with your little lover. You're happy and content. Of course you can be dignified. Your dignity comes from the heart." Suddenly, I saw through my own self-deception and forced pretense that everything was fine, and me. I was betrayed, abandoned, forced to accept this situation. Why should I be dignified? Is that even dignity? No, that's called being pathetic. Devin's expression made it clear he thought I was being unreasonable. "What do you really want?" "I want you to suffer. I want you two shameless lovers to never have a good ending in this lifetime." I stared at him, "Just want to vent." Devin was still dazed when I slapped him again, a sharp crack as crimson fingerprints bloomed across his cheek. Before my next strike could land, Devin seized my wrist, his teeth clenched in fury. "Chaya, You're crossing the line, more than your affair. More than serving the other woman's soup I made, more than her sending intimate photos to taunt me while I was hospitalized. I remained expressionless. No, I won't divorce until I've had my revenge. Devin looked at me as if seeing me for the first time, laughing in angry disbelief. Fine, Chaya. I always knew you were selfish and cold-blooded, unwilling to suffer the slightest loss, but I still underestimated you, not wanting any further complications in the divorce proceedings. And unable to bear the thought of his young lover continuing to be the other woman, Devin closed his eyes and let it go. Fine, consider it my debt to you. I forced a smile and twisted my wrist. TSK, what a touching display of self-sacrifice for love. Be sure to tell your little girl about today's heroic deeds. Let her properly fuss over your wounds. With that, another heavy slap landed across his face. My mood had finally improved by the time we arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau, only to be ruined again by a piercing scream. Deirdre, the other woman in Devin's life, stood at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, covering her mouth with a look of horror as she stared at Devin. The young woman was wearing stiletto heels today, dressed in a Chanel dress with a Hermes bag slung over her shoulder. Her makeup was flawless. And even her fingernails and every strand of hair had been meticulously styled. Youth shines with dazzling beauty. I don't know whether she dressed up and waited here to mock me as a victor, or to immediately celebrate their wonderful new life with Devin, but whatever her intentions were, they've now come to nothing. Deirdre threw herself into Devin's arms, tenderly caressing his face with tearful eyes. Devin, was it this wicked woman who hit you? How dare she hit you? How could she be so cruel? Why didn't you fight back? Devin spoke sternly yet with affection. Be good now, no more mischief. What's this little injury? I can't let her make you suffer. Deirdre pouted pitifully and buried her face in Devin's chest. Devin immediately softened and began comforting her in gentle whispers. Watching the two of them cling to each other in this mutual display of exaggerated affection made me sick to my stomach. Divorce or not? If not, I'm leaving. Divorce. Devin let go of the girl, not wanting to have taken those slaps for nothing. Deirdre spread her arms and blocked my path. No wonder Devin can't stand you. You apologized to Devin first. She was half a head shorter than me, glaring up at me with tearful eyes, pouting angrily, a recklessly adorable kind of courage. No wonder Devin likes her. Being with a girl like this really makes you feel like you've regressed to adolescence, both mentally and intellectually. I stuffed the divorce papers into my bag. Then keep being the other woman, living like a thief in the shadows for the rest of your life. The day I'm in the mood to settle accounts, Devin, I can reclaim every cent he spent on you. I glanced at her expensive designer outfit and nodded, including that outfit you're wearing. The little girl immediately quieted down. Under Devin's comforting words, she stood aside obediently with a pitiful look, watching us go through the divorce procedures. After the paperwork was done, Devin shielded the little girl as they got into the car and left. I walked to the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau and took a deep breath, the December cold air filling my lungs. The pain in my chest welled up belatedly. I remembered Devin saying in the car just now that I was selfish and cold-blooded. That wasn't the first time he'd evaluated me like that. Devin had put in tremendous effort when pursuing me 2 years without any response. He'd sighed and said as much back then. Chaya, you appear gentle and tender, but in truth, you're more selfish and cold-blooded than anyone else. To avoid getting hurt, you refuse to take the risk of letting anyone into your heart, yet it was precisely someone as selfish and cold-blooded as me who, after getting together with him, let down all my defenses for his sake. After graduation, we both wanted to pursue postgraduate studies, but financially, it was impossible. Just then, I received an excellent job offer, so I gritted my teeth and told Devin to focus on his postgraduate exams while I worked to support him. The rent in big cities is exorbitant, and with just my salary to cover living expenses, I could only afford a small room without a private bathroom. Back then, I was really poor, couldn't afford to eat out. I bought a small induction cooker and set it by the window to make simple meals. When we occasionally got bonuses, we'd go together to eat lamb spine hot pot at that restaurant at the end of the street. It was also in winters like this that lamb spine hot pot warmed us best. Devin would always pick out the meatiest bones for me. One time when he saw me meticulously searching through the finished hot pot for any stray pieces of meat, Devin got teary-eyed. He said, Chaya, I've made you suffer. He told me to wait for him, promising that someday he'd make sure I could eat whatever I wanted, buy whatever I desired. Without even glancing at the price tags, he said, believe in me, I'll make you the woman every other woman in the world envies. Promises are always beautiful, but reality turns its back without mercy. Last month, I passed out from acute appendicitis and was taken to the hospital by a passerby. I called Devin countless times, But no one answered. A stranger's account sent a photo. In the photo, a young girl, vibrant and beautiful, was proudly taking a selfie with Devin's phone. Confiscate uncle's phone, no answering calls from others. Behind her, my husband Devin stood leaning against the door with crossed arms, smiling indulgently at her mischief. The next day, Devin came to the hospital. Under my calm gaze, he spoke in a weary tone. Chaya, it's been 10 years. People grow tired of anything. Whatever you want, I can compensate you. Deirdre is young, don't take it to heart. Returning home, I somewhat regretted my impulsiveness. Violence is never the right solution. Life is long, and I can handle this matter more gracefully, or take more clever revenge on them. Just as I was reflecting, I saw Deirdre's social media post. Probably to comfort Deirdre for the shock and grievance she suffered, Devin took her out for a lavish meal and indulged in shopping until her hands were nearly full. The little girl seemed to be in a good mood after being coaxed, wearing a small dress and stepping in little high heels. Sitting in a high-end restaurant with a proud and coquettish expression as she made a V sign with her fingers. At this point, all a certain resentful woman can do is throw a tantrum. What else can we do? Just humor the menopausal woman, I suppose. Among her series of accompanying photos, there was one of a fair and delicate ankle, loosely adorned with a few delicate loops of a foot chain. I recognized it. That was the necklace I'd left in the marital home. Devin gave it to me during our first year together, a simple silver chain I'd treasured and worn for years. It was listed in the divorce settlement, soon to be Devin's property along with the house. Whether he wanted to gift it to Deirdre as an anklet or put it on the dog, there was nothing I could do. A very clumsy tactic. Deirdre deliberately showed it to me, no doubt wanting to mock me, provoke me, and turn the tables. Closed the social media feed. I faced my own heart with complete honesty. Yes. I'm truly provoked. That's right. Violence isn't the best solution. You're correct, life is long, and I could handle this matter more gracefully, or take more subtle revenge on them. But right now, I just want to wipe those smiles off their faces. I first called my lawyer to amend the divorce agreement. I've changed my mind. I want Devin to leave with nothing. The lawyer pondered for a moment. This request might be quite difficult to fulfill. It's okay. My gaze fell on the phone screen, Deirdre's face beaming with smug triumph. After all, I'm not the one who can't afford to wait. Hung up the phone. I went to the walk-in closet and picked out a hardshell bag with metal corner guards, drove out, and headed straight to the mall where Devin was shopping. I found the two of them arm in arm at the mall entrance. A bag swung up and hit. The metal corner guard cut Devin's brow, and blood streamed down. Deirdre screamed again. Devin clutched his forehead in anger. Chaya, what madness are you up to again? I raised an eyebrow. What, you want to fight back? Glancing at the rapidly gathering crowd of onlookers, Devin ground his teeth. What kind of person do you take me for? I nodded. That's good. Then came another solid slap across the face. The onlookers buzzed with heated discussion. What's going on here? Does it even need asking? Clearly a case of beating up the mistress. Wait, no, from what I see, this sister's exclusively beating up her husband. Of course, I'll take down 100 enemies, but I'm not about to lose 8,000 myself. Beating the other woman counts as intentional assault and can lead to detention. At most, beating your not yet divorced husband counts as domestic violence. As for how domestic violence is handled, well, everyone knows. The young woman, unconvinced, argued loudly. He's already going to divorce you. We've paid you compensation. What more do you want? I carefully chewed over these two words. Devin haven't filed for divorce yet. And you two haven't gotten your marriage license yet. So, who exactly is this you're referring to? People around had already started recording videos. Wow, this mistress is so brazen. And calling him uncle, they don't even look that far apart in age. What kind of kink is this? Hurry, film this. Let's see if this cheating husband will hit his wife for his mistress. Devin hadn't completely lost his wits yet, probably out of embarrassment. He desperately tried to drag Deirdre away, but the little girl stubbornly resisted, sending shopping bags scattering across the ground. Devin fumbled in panic, and I seized the opportunity to whack him a few more times with my bag. Sometimes the blows landed on him, sometimes on Deirdre, who couldn't resist poking her head out from his arms. Indiscriminate attacks. Amidst the chaos, Deirdre lost her shoes. The necklace she wore as an anklet slipped off, tripping her and sending her tumbling hard onto her backside. The necklace flew away, disappearing into the crowd of onlookers. Despite Devin's protests, Deirdre still called the police. We were taken to the police station. My lawyer arrived immediately and took charge from the rear. I'm sorry, officer. I bowed my head sincerely and apologized with complete compliance. I suddenly discovered my husband's affair betrayed and abandoned. I was so heartbroken and overwhelmed that I lost my composure. In a moment of impulse, I couldn't help but hit him. I've caused you trouble. And I'm truly sorry." The officer taking my statement paused, looking at me with some hesitation in his eyes. "First time doing this?" "Yeah. First time." The policeman frowned. The lawyer spoke up promptly. "The criteria for identifying domestic violence are persistence and frequency. My client's actions absolutely do not qualify as domestic violence. It was simply an overreaction due to extreme emotional distress." The officer set down his pen and delivered his verdict. "This is a marital dispute. You two should go home and work it out through proper communication." Deirdre suddenly stood up, her voice shrill. "What? The fight was so brutal, and she doesn't even get detained." The police officer glanced at Devin's face. "Looks scary, but the assessment shows it doesn't even qualify as minor injuries, doesn't meet the detention criteria." Deirdre was so furious she looked around in bewilderment, then suddenly pointed at her own bruised forehead. "What about me? She hit me too. I'm not her family member, so doesn't that count as intentional assault?" The lawyer shot me a look, once again. I wisely stood up and apologized. "My apologies, Miss Deirdre. You happened to be in my line of attack. I couldn't stop myself in time. It was purely accidental." The police officer also nodded. "Miss, the surveillance footage doesn't prove that Miss Song had any intention to harm you. This doesn't constitute intentional injury and can only be resolved through civil mediation, in the end, according to standard procedure." The police had me pay Deirdre 50 yuan for lost wages and 200 yuan for emotional distress, a total of 250 yuan. I sincerely accepted, calling out to Deirdre, who was being comforted by Devin, and pointed at Deirdre. "Did you hear that? Transfer 250 to her. Anyway, the property hasn't been divided yet, so whether he transfers or I transfer makes no difference." Deirdre's face turned dark as I left the police station. I passed by Deirdre and smiled faintly at her wary gaze. "Why did you have to provoke me? There's a 1-month cooling-off period for divorce. I can change my mind anytime. Try showing off to me again. I dare you." Walking out of the police station, I felt physically and mentally refreshed. Everything suddenly made sense. What calm restraint, what dignified composure. It's all just self-deception. Every emotion suppressed now will surface in the dead of night, then viciously rebound and consume you. Reliving today's pain and humiliation again and again, tormented endlessly. People should always settle their scores when they can, report it immediately when it happens. Venting anger naturally improves one's mood. In the end, I still took the path most betrayed women walk, hitting and cursing. But I won't torment myself, I'm going to torment them. When I found out the video of me beating up the cheating scum and his mistress at the mall entrance had gone viral online, I was at the boxing gym practicing my punches. Although I've had a regular fitness routine for years, it was only to maintain my energy levels and keep my figure toned. I never imagined I'd actually get into a fight someday. Looking back on that moment when I pummeled them, I kept feeling like I hadn't performed well enough. It wasn't satisfying. So I signed myself up for boxing lessons. During the break, the young boxing coach looked at me with his phone, then back at the video. "Hey, sis. This is you." Curious, I took it and realized the video had gone viral, and all 3 of our personal information had been dug up by someone. Netizens were flooding the comments below. "At least she's not just beating up the mistress. I can't stand women who say they'll deal with the mistress first and then handle their man behind closed doors. Let's be real, they're just unwilling to let go of that piece of trash. Women really should focus on fitness. Look at the wife's toned and defined muscles, so much power when she throws a punch. The wife is so gorgeous. Was the scumbag blind or what?" Some people sided with Devin and Deirdre. Am I the only one who thinks this guy should just get a divorce? Yeah, the wife is way too violent. What man wouldn't prefer someone gentle? She's practically pushing him away herself. If it were me, I'd choose the other woman too. She's so delicate yet still shields the man from harm. Any man would be moved by that. I'm a woman too, and I feel the same way. Sometimes we really need to look within ourselves for the reasons. Don't women feel embarrassed when they make such a scene of themselves? Walking away with dignity is what a true leading lady would do. Perhaps seeing that someone was speaking up for her, Deirdre created an account and posted numerous close-ups of her injuries to garner sympathy. The bruises and bloodstains on her fair skin looked particularly pitiful. The caption read, "Loving you is hard, but I won't back down." I sneered and replied with a photo of the boxing gym below. "You're not hardworking, you're just unlucky in life." Then I uploaded all the evidence of Deirdre provoking me on my own account, like the photo of her wrinkling her delicate little face while drinking soup. Someone's herbal soup tastes awful, but Devin insists I'm weak and forces me to drink it. Like the message she sent me the night I had my appendectomy surgery. Surgery must be scary, right? Devin keeps saying I'm afraid of thunder and insists on staying with me, like when she posted a photo of her hand wearing a diamond ring, alongside a 200,000 yuan receipt swiped with Devin's card, and her beaming face. Life is a piece of cake, all the showing off, gloating, and provocation, including her wearing my necklace as an anklet and such. I posted it all. The online spectators followed the trail, and I had to give them a good show. After finishing my martial arts practice, taking a comfortable shower, changing clothes, and picking up my phone, I saw public opinion had completely turned against her. Deirdre's delicate white flower persona was completely ruined. Damn. That's so despicable, it's infuriating me. Always making an issue of the first wife's age. Does she think she won't live to that age herself? Upstairs. Don't be mad. Go watch the video of the wife beating up the cheating scumbag and his mistress. It's great for relieving stress. I keep watching it on repeat, so therapeutic for netizens' mental health. Now this is what I call a satisfying drama. Every punch lands perfectly. If I were that mistress, I'd keep my head down. Is she stupid or what? Why keep provoking the wife? It's just resentment. Some people are just shameless, stealing someone else's husband and then flaunting their victory. Some still remain clear-headed and rational. Am I the only one who thinks the ex-wife looks pathetic like this? All this lingering drama just shows she still can't let go. Exactly. She should just walk away with grace and find someone hotter and richer than her ex to rub it in his face. Yeah, only when the ex-husband sees his former wife with another man will he truly feel the loss. Who knows? He might even start chasing her back desperately. Jack the coach was thoroughly enjoying the drama, watching with great amusement. He said, with my current popularity, if trained well, I could become the boxing gym's living advertisement. Upon seeing this comment, he straightened his posture, showcasing his well-defined muscles and handsome, sun-kissed face, beaming with a radiant smile. Sis, how about me? Want me to help piss off that scumbag? I'm younger and handsomer than him. Just standing next to you would guarantee. One more word and I'll report you for harassing a student. Oh, I took annual leave from work and simply moved into a hotel. At least there I wouldn't have to look at all those annoying things at home. Working out, swimming, leisurely enjoying snacks in the executive lounge, admiring the night view from the top floor suite, and waking up naturally. So what if men don't love me? I'll love myself twice as much. On the other hand, there are still many clear-headed people online who think I've completely lost my dignity. Came across a video commentary about me from a million-follower relationship blogger. The most sophisticated revenge a woman can take is indifference. True departures are always silent. This Ms. Chaya appears to have one. But in reality, she's still punishing herself with her ex-husband's mistakes. Making such a scene after a breakup means you can't even preserve a dignified image. The man will just think, thank goodness I left you. I scoffed, turning washing dirty laundry into something sophisticated. Why should I care what some deadbeat's final impression of me is? It's not like I should swallow my pride until I develop breast nodules, then leave empty-handed just to give Devin some melancholic silhouette to occasionally regret during his midnight reminiscences. But with so many influencers reposting this, is it really that popular? I swiftly updated my account bio. Might as well take this chance to build up the account. After working late into the night, my college roommate called, her tone cautious. Chaya, about tomorrow's class reunion. Are you still coming? I understood immediately. The video of the original wife beating up the cheating husband and mistress at the mall entrance went viral, so most people we know have probably seen it. Of course I'm going. Why wouldn't I? But I heard that Devin is bringing that girl along. Won't you feel a bit? I chuckled, embarrassed. If he's shameless enough to flaunt his affair in public, why should I, completely innocent, feel any embarrassment? The roommate breathed a sigh of relief. Ah, I'm glad you can think this way. I was afraid you wouldn't be able to face it. After all, Devin was your first love. She recalled those days, feeling somewhat emotional. Back then, so many people pursued you. They all said you were unyielding to both soft and hard approaches, gently rejecting everyone. Yet you agreed to be with Devin, and once you started dating, you became incredibly devoted, walking from campus to marriage over more than a decade. It's only natural you can't let go. My heart gave a slight twinge. Let's not mention sunk costs. See you the day after tomorrow, on the day of the class reunion. When I pushed the door open, the lively crowd instantly fell silent. Everyone was looking at me strangely. I looked back. Deirdre sat beside Devin, cradling a small dog in her arms and feeding it butter cookies. I recognized them as my own baking. I enjoy baking, not so much for eating, but for the creative process. Devin sometimes takes a few jars to the office to pair with coffee, claiming they're healthier than store-bought pastries. Deirdre spotted me and fed the dog another cookie, her eyes flashing with unmistakable defiance. What kind of garbage is this? Only fit for dogs. I nodded. Pretty good. Better than being eaten by you. By the way, just a reminder, the person next to you has been eating it for years. Deirdre slowly came back to her senses. His gaze shifted from confusion to anger. Seeing the situation turning sour, Classmates quickly stepped in to smooth things over, some diverting the conversation, others pulling me to take a seat, not wanting to dampen the mood. I went along with it, laughing and chatting as I sat down. After several rounds of drinks, everyone's spirits were high, reminiscing about college days, some pulling out graduation photos, others digging up old meal cards. The atmosphere was just right when Deirdre suddenly interrupted. Speaking of old things, I actually found quite a few while cleaning the house yesterday. She pulled out from her bag photos of me and Devin, the peace charms we got together at the mountain temple. Handwritten letters Devin gave me during business trips, so many things, all old keepsakes I'd carefully preserved in our marital home. She held them up one by one, examining and commenting on them loudly with contempt. Look at this photo, it's so ugly, even a handsome guy like me looks terrible in it. And this one, what superstitious nonsense, only old aunties would believe in this kind of stuff. Deirdre picked up the plain silver ring we bought during our first Valentine's Day with her chopsticks, flipping it around disdainfully, keeping a worthless silver ring like it's some treasure. You really have no taste for the finer things. The students exchanged glances, stealing looks at my reaction. I stood up and splashed a glass of ice water in Devin's face. Were you asleep? Don't you know how to control the things you brought? Then to Deirdre. You've really gone through the trouble, not only taking in a big piece of trash, but also finding the time to gather all these little scraps of garbage and bring them over. Devin quickly wiped the water from his face, pulled me aside, his voice low with suppressed anger. It's all because of what you posted online. Deirdre was cursed at for 2 days and cried all night. She didn't even do anything to you, didn't name names, just took out her anger on some of your things. Was it really necessary? She deserved it. I casually smashed the empty glass right onto Devin's nose bridge. You had it coming. Devin's nose, still not healed from the last time I hit it, started bleeding profusely again. Deirdre screamed once more, and several classmates quickly stepped in to separate Devin and me. Chaya. Devin growled through gritted teeth, unable to contain his anger any longer. With so many classmates watching, aren't you ashamed of making such a scene? Do you really think anyone would sympathize with you or stand up for you? They're just here to laugh at you. I sneered. What do I have to fear? You're the one who cheated, and she's the one who knowingly got involved with someone taken. As for shame, it certainly doesn't fall on me. I swept my gaze across the surrounding classmates. If anyone here thinks I'm the one who should be ashamed, then everyone should take a good look at what kind of person they are. A few classmates who had been smirking and enjoying the drama just moments ago now looked stunned, awkwardly lowering their heads. Devin took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Chaya, we need to talk. In the empty room next door, Devin rubbed his temples in frustration. Chaya, I don't understand. You've always been emotionally detached. You could handle both parents leaving you. So what difference does one more make? Is it just because my affair damaged your pride? Do you really have to torture me like this? It's not like you ever loved me that much anyway. My face remained expressionless. Oh, what makes you say that? Devin paced back and forth excitedly, enumerating every point. Since we got married, you've never been willing to give up any promotion opportunity, even refusing to have children for the sake of your career. I could easily support you financially, yet you insist on not taking an easy job. Sometimes you're even busier than I am. Even during rare vacations, you still go to the gym or take classes, never coming home early to wait for me. Do you know how much I long to come home to a waiting light every day? That warm feeling, I've only ever experienced it with Deirdre. Deirdre is different from you. She's innocent, passionate, and has eyes only for me. I'm begging you, stop targeting her. Okay, I couldn't stand Devin's shameless face any longer, so I grabbed whatever was at hand and threw it at him. Are you blind? Don't you know who started this? Stop pretending. Changing your heart means changing your heart. Stop making grand excuses and pinning the blame for your affair on me. Have you no shame? I yelled while throwing things. Devin dodged in panic. Why didn't you give up your promotion? Why didn't you stay home to cook for me? Why didn't you leave a light on for me late at night? That's right, I've never been the traditional, virtuous wife and mother that men idealize. Because I don't want to become someone like my mother. When I was very young, my father had an affair. Mom would repeatedly recount their days of love, wiping tears while hysterical. She said how could he change like this? She refused to believe it. It was all that bitch seducing him. But Dad was already on his 4th affair. When Mom frantically confronted the other woman, Dad looked cold and impatient. The mistress sneered, and the onlookers watched with pity and mockery. That was when I made a silent vow to myself. In this lifetime, I would never let myself become that pathetic. I will never wholeheartedly trust anyone, nor will I cling to any emotion. Thus, I've never had an inseparable best friend, a heart-fluttering crush, or parents I could act spoiled with. Yet it persists endlessly. A stable mood has become a stagnant pool of lifeless water. My existence is so untethered. as if I could vanish from this world at any moment. Actually, Devin isn't that great. He just appeared at the right time. When I started questioning the meaning of my existence, he told me, Chaya, love is a beautiful thing, don't miss out on it just because you're afraid of getting hurt. So I tried opening my heart to love someone, but deep down, I have a strong sense of self-preservation that prevents me from ever loving without reservation. I could never tie my fate entirely to a man. When our financial situation improved slightly after marriage, I hired a housekeeper to free myself from trivial chores and focus on building my career. But what's wrong with that? If I weren't a corporate executive now, could I afford such a long paid leave to divorce you? If I couldn't hire the best lawyers, would you have divided the assets so willingly? If I were stuck at home doing chores with 2 kids, would I even have time to settle them before hitting you? No one noticed when the door opened. A crowd had gathered, all filming with their phones. I know this segment will soon go viral too. My former classmates were all dumbfounded, and it took them a while to snap out of it and pull us apart. Devin and Deirdre were dragged off to who knows where, leaving only my college roommate to stay with me. The class reunion turned into a full-blown gossip fest. My roommate sighed with emotion. Chaya, you always managed to surprise us. You know what? Back then we all said you were an ice queen who'd never fall in love, but then you suddenly got together with Devin and had this serious relationship that lasted years. And not long ago when we saw that video of you beating up Devin, we were shocked too. Though it's quite satisfying. I never imagined you'd do something like this. It's a bit. My roommate seemed hesitant to say it. I chuckled and finished the sentence for them. A bit like a shrew, isn't it? My roommate said awkwardly. It's not that serious, it's okay, I replied bluntly. I don't think shrew is necessarily a bad word. It's something I only came to realize these past few days. Women have been conditioned to be too docile for far too long. In literature, films, and television, wounded women who wallow in self-pity are often portrayed with poetic, moving imagery, even encouraging them to endure further abuse or seek it out. As if silent suffering would eventually make everyone suddenly realize their mistakes and feel profound regret. Yet the most necessary act of retaliation, when taken, is immediately stigmatized as being a shrew, but when harmed, one should absolutely give tit for tat. We should have possessed the power to be aggressive and self-protective. Back then, I didn't understand. I only knew how to isolate myself. It wasn't that I truly didn't want to love others, I was just running away. Devin was right about that, because I feared the potential pain of facing it. I didn't even dare to touch the beautiful love. When I found out Devin was cheating, I regretted opening my heart for a while. I wondered, was I wrong? Perhaps I really shouldn't let anyone into my heart after all. But in these days of venting through the most direct slaps, I suddenly understood, it shouldn't be like this. Cowards get hurt even by cotton, they're even afraid of happiness. Life comes only once, we should face everything it gives us head on. Laugh when you're happy, cry when you're sad, love when you feel like loving. It's okay to get hurt, let go of what needs to be let go, and fight back when you must. Only this way can you live freely, without regrets. Only then can you greet fate's next gift with endless passion and eternal anticipation. The days that followed were quite pleasant too. Deirdre, whenever she couldn't resist acting up and pissing me off, I'd find Devin and give him a good beating, afraid he might fight back in desperation. I always brought along Jack the coach as my bodyguard. Eventually, it got to the point where just raising my hand would make Devin and Deirdre instinctively duck their necks with terrified looks in their eyes. That's more like it. They have no right to flaunt their happiness in front of me, it's too sickening to watch. A scumbag and his mistress should keep their heads down and slink around like this. I'm quite satisfied, but Deirdre still hasn't learned her lesson completely. After finding out she was pregnant, she couldn't resist sending me her pregnancy test results, her tone dripping with smugness. 6 years of marriage without conceiving. No wonder you got dumped. Thankfully my womb is fertile. And Devin is over the moon. I studied her belly with keen interest. This was absolutely hilarious. Wasn't this just blatantly telling me her womb couldn't wait any longer? Deirdre soon regretted her provocation with bitter remorse, because I didn't show up on the day we were supposed to get our divorce certificate. While she was frantically bombarding me with angry calls, I was vacationing on the beach, filming content for my fans. Chaya, how could you go back on your word? I lazily bask in the sun. I'm furious, I simply don't have the energy to get divorced without taking a vacation first. Let Devin go get a new Q number. The live stream room was buzzing with excitement. She's truly mastered the marriage law. Haha, reverse psychology. As long as I stay calm, others will panic. Let's see if the mistress dares to act smug now. After the rearrangement, before the wedding registration date arrived, Devin first received a court summons. The lawyer drafted a new contract for me, demanding Devin leave with nothing. Devin initially refused outright and dragged it out for another month. But as Deirdre's belly was about to show, the young woman, who cherished her beauty and dreamed of looking stunning in a wedding dress, wanted to marry as soon as possible. She cried and made a scene, pressuring Devin to agree to the divorce terms. "Devin, you make $1 million a year, you'll earn it back eventually. If we don't hold the wedding soon, I won't even fit into my wedding dress around the waist." Devin gritted his teeth and signed the agreement. I successfully secured all marital assets. My previous viral videos gave me significant exposure, and by live-streaming the divorce process, I've gained hundreds of thousands of followers. Doing the math, this divorce might just make me rich. On the day we signed the agreement, Deirdre had tears in her eyes, looking as if she had suffered the greatest injustice, and bit her lip as she asked me, "Are you satisfied now, with this cooling-off period over? What excuse could you possibly have not to cooperate?" I smiled faintly. "Don't worry, I promise I'll be there this time." On the day they collected their divorce certificates, Devin and Deirdre held their breath the entire time, not daring to make a sound, only exhaling in relief once the green booklets were in their hands. This time, I meant what I said, because the bomb I planted for Devin was about to explode. If we didn't draw a clear line now, I was afraid Devin would change his mind. But now is the time. The day after receiving their divorce certificate, Devin and Deirdre had just finalized their wedding invitation designs when Devin's personal information could no longer be contained online. The renowned foreign company where he worked responded swiftly, issuing a sternly worded statement that very day. The core message was just one sentence: "Mr. Devin has seriously violated our company's core values and employee code of conduct. His employment contract is terminated effective immediately. An annual salary of $1 million, gone." Deirdre wanted to follow my lead in building an online presence. She rushed to flaunt her diamond ring and baby bump, only to have her account permanently banned by the platform for promoting inappropriate values. At the same time, my lawyer sent me a message: "Mr. Devin faces substantial penalty fees due to termination of employment." Coupled with previous excessive spending and the division of marital assets already completed, preliminary estimates showed debts nearing $1 million. I glanced at the phone notification, took a sip of iced coconut water, my feet buried in soft white sand, gazing at the azure sea and sky. I replied with 2 words: "Not bad." In the live stream, fans were spreading the news with great joy and excitement. "Congratulations, Chaya, for escaping the misery and thriving on your own. May the scumbag and the homewrecker stay together forever." One unemployed, the other banned. Perfect match. This ending is so satisfying I could wolf down 3 bowls of rice in one go. I gazed at the boundless sea horizon, the ocean breeze lifting strands of my hair as I smiled with effortless radiance. My emotional detachment seems to have healed quite naturally on its own.